This is the Hungarian flag, but did you know that this other flag on the left is also sometimes used for Hungary? So in today's video, let's find out what are the origins of the Hungarian flags. Now you might be thinking this is a little bit similar, there's a symbol in the middle of one flag and not in the other one. It's probably just that they used to have a king and they don't have one anymore. And I'd be lying if that isn't the basic outline. But I thought it's actually quite interesting to look at the composite parts of the Hungarian coat of arms and the Hungarian flag and how it changed over time, which is what I'll do in today's video. So, Hungary is a country in Central Europe, and the origin of the flag goes back to 1848, a year of great rebellions throughout Europe. And there was just such a rebellion in Hungary against the Habsburg Empire, which it was a part of. Now, of course, the Habsburgs had their own flag, the double-headed black eagle often shown on a gold background going back to the time of the Holy Roman Empire, and with various coats of arms there. But this isn't a video about that flag. So instead, let's return to 1848 and look at the colours on the flag. Now, the reason why the Hungarian rebels chose a tricolour goes back to the French Revolution, which was incredibly important for a lot of flags, just as we saw with Italy and other nations, although that in turn probably goes back to the Dutch tricolour, which came earlier because the Dutch were one of the first republics in the early modern period in Europe. So why then the red, yellow and green colours? Well, this goes back to the colours, the main colours that are shown on the coat of arms of Hungary, which is somewhat older than the tricolour. So let's look at each part of the coat of arms of Hungary, and let's begin by looking at the left side of the shield where we have this red and white striped pattern, and this is from the Árpád dynasty, a dynasty that came to rule over Hungary starting around the year 900. Now, as some of you will know, the Hungarians actually came into Europe fairly late. Around this time, a series of migrations and invasions of the Magyar people, which is still to this day the name the Hungarians have for themselves, and is why the Hungarian language isn't really related to any of the languages around it. So this is why they had the red and white stripes, because these became the symbol of the coat of arms of the Árpád family, and this continued even after 1301, when that dynasty lost power as the kings of Hungary. It had become such a symbol of Hungary, the founding nation, that it was kept on the coat of arms into later periods as well. Let's now take a look at the crown which sits on top of the Hungarian coat of arms and look at where this has come from. Now, this is generally agreed to be the crown of Stephen I of Hungary, and he's a very important king of Hungary because he was the first real Magyar overlord of Hungary to convert to Christianity, as well as being the first one to be called the King of Hungary rather than the Grand Prince of Hungary, which had been the title before, this switch occurring around the year 1000. So he's seen as a very important king for Hungary, including with the bringing of Christianity to the nation, and indeed being recognized as the first king of the nation back then. So that leaves us with the final third of the flag, and what I think potentially is the most interesting third. And that is on the right hand side we have several elements. First, the Patriarchal Cross, we have a crown, and we have 3 hills at the bottom. The crown once again represents the Kingdom of Hungary and the new dynasty. The 3 hills are representative of the 3 mountain ranges in the kingdom, Tátra, Mátra and Fátra, as it's said in Hungarian. But the Patriarchal Cross has a little bit more of a complex history, which I'd like to look at now. So this symbol is first really appearing on Hungarian sigils in the 1190s, and it's thought that this symbol had previously been used by the Byzantine Empire, and it's seen on quite a lot of iconography there, often being held as a sort of scepter by various rulers. Now, the reason why it comes to Hungary and on the Hungarian coat of arms is because of a chap called King Béla III, who was a king of Hungary at the end of the 12th century, although when he'd been raised, he'd actually been expecting to become the Byzantine emperor, and it was only later in life that when he was forced to give up that claim that he became the king of Hungary instead. And so it seems that he kept the cross that he would otherwise have had as the Byzantine ruler and transported it to Hungary. And it's in a following reign, in King Bela IV's reign, that we first actually physically see it appearing. In 1172, for instance, on this cross, this sigil, this seal rather, you see the double cross, the Patriarchal Cross that his predecessor had taken with him from Byzantium as a symbol. And this is an incredibly important symbol that we will see again and again, and so it becomes associated with Hungary, as well as, of course, with the neighbouring nation of Slovakia, although I'll go into that when I make a video about the Slovakian flag. So another important development is in 1440, when the new king of various nations, including Hungary, Władysław III, the king of Poland, as well as, I believe, Hungary, Lithuania, and Croatia for a short time, had this wonderful coat of arms, where we first see the combination of the Arpad lines, the stripes, as well as the double cross, including also the white eagle of Poland and the white horse and rider of Lithuania. More on those two in my video about the Polish flag and the symbolism there. Now in 1458, in the reign of Matthias I, also called Matthias Corvinus in Latin, we see on his coins that he has this symbol, the coat of arms, obviously a slightly different symbol from King Władysław, which shows which regions he was ruling, but we have the stripes and the double cross together on that coat of arms there. And it's in 1612, so obviously not his son, but his namesake Matthias II, that we see them both together, that they are cemented both together on a coat of arms that appears. And in 1848, we return to the year of the rebellion, and what's interesting is that from paintings and descriptions of the time, both flown were the simple tricolour with no coat of arms, as we see here, and also various flags that did include coat of arms in them, as you can see in this image. Although, of course, as this was a rebellion, and a rebellion that would only last 1 year, there weren't too many official standards for what this Hungarian flag should look like. And so many people simply went off a design that had to include red, white and green, as many people did during that time. Now, as I mentioned, by 1849 the rebels had been crushed by the Habsburgs, but in 1867 there was a great compromise between many of those who had been civilly disobedient and revolted against the regime and the Habsburg rulers themselves, which stated that Hungary would count as a kingdom within the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And so they granted the Hungarians a separate flag that they could use within Hungary itself, which was based on the red, white and green design, but with a slightly different crest in the center, following the same sort of lines as the previous incarnations in the Middle Ages and the early modern period, but flanked by two angels. And as time went on, in 1915, obviously a year into the Great War, or what would become the First World War, they changed things up again, changing the angels slightly. There were several iterations of this. But an important turning point is 1918, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire was partitioned following the loss of the Central Powers in that First World War. And so Hungary would emerge as one of the nations that came out of the ashes of the old Habsburg Empire. Now, in 1919, it would fall to various communist powers in the area, the Hungarian People's Socialist Republic, or something similar, and their flag would just be plain red, but they would go on to lose a catastrophic war against neighbouring Romania, and Hungary would fall and once again become a more democratic republican power. From after the communist period up until the end of the Second World War, the Hungarian flag would remain the red, white and green tricolour with the coat of arms, although the version without the coat of arms continued as well alongside it, although that was technically unofficial. However, at the end of the Second World War, we get quite a few changes to the flag history, as this is when, obviously, under Soviet pressure, Hungary became a socialist republic. So in 1946, first they hadn't really changed the flag too much. They'd added in a form of the same kind of coat of arms or crest that we'd seen, but without the crown, because obviously, at least the crown on top, St. Stephen's crown, because the Soviets weren't too keen either on religion or on classical monarchies. However, in 1949, they added a much more communist-looking insignia in the center with the hammer and a sheath of grain, and also a red star, so classic communist symbols. Now in 1956, the Hungarians famously rebelled against the Soviets with dire and violent consequences. And one of the images most commonly seen of this period, and indeed later on in anti-communist insurrections in Central and Eastern Europe, such as in Romania in 1989, is that people would rip out the communist crest in the center of the national flag, which would leave the pure tricolour without a crest in the center. And that's something you often saw in 1956. However, by 1957, the Soviets would famously send their tanks into Hungary, and they would quell the rebellion in this way. However, they did agree to change the flag after this point, removing the crest completely and having just a plain old red, white and green tricolour. And so in 1989, when the communist government was removed from power in Hungary, the new government didn't have to change their flag because, well, there was no insignia that represented the communist period on that flag, unlike in some other states in Eastern Europe where they did decide to change the flag. Today, this remains the flag of Hungary. And there has been some talk in the Hungarian parliament about changing the flag back to having the former coat of arms, the crest, in the centre. But currently no such action has been undertaken, and you can still find both flags today in Hungary. So if you're from Hungary and you know something about it and you know which flags are displayed, then do let me know in the comments below which flags you most commonly see. Do you think that we should change the flag back to having the coat of arms, or do you like the kind of status quo that both flags have? I'm not actually sure what the display is of either flag in and outside of Hungary by Hungarians, potentially those living in Romania and other parts of Central Europe. So do let me know. I'm always interested to find out more. But that, my dear friends, is the end of this video about the Hungarian flags and their history. Thanks ever so much for watching. I hope you're still finding these flag videos important, but people do seem to be watching them and enjoying them. So as long as that's the case, then I'm happy to keep making them in case you continue to find them interesting. Check out my other videos about flags and various other topics. There should be cards and there should be some links in the description below. If you're new and you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and do hit the bell notification, the little icon below the video screen, because that will keep you informed as to when I upload, because YouTube doesn't seem to be doing that anymore, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, until the next time, I have been Hilbert and this has been The History.